In today's show, we talk about the Blazers' loss to the Cavs and the 1 minute that decided the game. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You'll listen to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, we're talking Blazers' loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs come into Portland, win 122-111. Blazers' young core played pretty well in this game. Scoot Henderson had a nice night. I thought Donovan Clingan had a really good game. I thought the good stuff for Shaedon Sharpe was good, although he didn't have a particularly efficient shooting night. We'll talk all that. We'll talk Matisse Thybulle and the 1 minute that decided the game. There was about a minute of this game came down to the final 6 minutes of the game, final 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, and there was a 1 minute stretch in that fourth quarter that just flipped the game on its head. We will talk about that as well as numbers to know about who has played in Portland this year. We'll get into all of it, but first, let's do what we do. Fast recap in the West. You know how we do it. Blazers lose 122-111. This game was tied 33-all. I thought the Blazers struggled a little bit to shoot early outside the arc. Started just 3 of 12 from 3, but they were 11 of 17 on 2s. They got into the paint. They were intentional about attacking, even with as big as Cleveland is. The Cavs are playing this game without Donovan Mitchell. Blazers have played Cleveland twice this year. Neither game has seen Sputter make an appearance, but the Cavs are still good. Good teams are deep. That's kind of the mark of it. So I'll talk about that a little bit more later in the program. Blazers still playing this game without Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, and Rob Williams. Rob obviously done for the year. I'm thinking we're not going to see Jeremy Grant or DeAndre Ayton either. At this point, it would be very surprising to me if either of them returned. Blazers, Cavs tied after one. Cavs led by as many as 11 in the second quarter. Looked for brief periods during both the second and the third quarter like the Cavs are going to run away and hide. It's like they're just, okay, there it is. They make one more shot, then it's like all of a sudden it's a 15, 17 point lead, and then you're scrambling, or at least you're down enough that there's a little bit of leeway. But the Blazers really never let the Cavs pull away for real. 11-point lead at one point in the second quarter by going to halftime down 8, just 60-52 Cavs edge at halftime. And a big part of that first half surge was Donovan Clingan. He had 13 points, 9 boards, and 2 assists in the first half. You will recall, or maybe you don't recall, so I'll help you recall, that when the Blazers played the Cavs in Cleveland, that game went to overtime. Denny Avdija had a 30-point triple-double. It was an impressive night, but Donovan Clingan didn't really participate. He fouled out in 11 minutes. Freaking more than a foul every 2 minutes. He just could not stay on the floor. He talked about it after the game, is that he felt like in that game he bit on too many pump fakes. He just wanted to stay on the ground, be big. Donovan Clingan, to his credit, and I think this is one of his best skills as a young basketball player, he knows what he is, and what he is a gigantic person, and he just knows how to be in the way and be gigantic, and one of his focuses in this game was just do that. Be really big and use your strength of being really big so you can stay on the court. Clingan finished with amazingly just 4 fouls in this one. I mean, dude is he's kind of a foul machine, but didn't never was a foul trouble issue. Played nearly 32 minutes, stayed on the court, had a big night, including that big first half to keep the Blazers close. The third quarter, much like the second, there were moments when the Cavs looked like they might pull away. It's like, okay, this is going to happen. They're just really good, right? They'd bring Ty Jerome in there and he just scores, and Darius Garland gets to the mid-range, and Evan Mobley does so much stuff off the dribble at someone his size, and they get, Sam Merrill's making threes, and it's just their offense can really get humming in a way, and they share the ball, can really get humming in a way that is that's can be demoralizing, quite frankly. And the Blazers just never, they always had a response. They always had a response in this game. They actually shot pretty darn well in the middle 2 quarters after a slow start, and that kind of gave them a puncher's chance to be in the game. And they're down just 6 after 3 quarters, 92-86. The game changes in a minute in the fourth quarter. 2-point game, 106-104. Shaedon Sharpe drives down the right-hand side and gets a lot of contact as he gets to the rim. This was a relatively physical game. I don't think the Blazers have played more physical games more recently than this, but this was a pretty physical game. This was a game that I thought the referees let some stuff go for the most part. I don't think it was this perfectly refereed game, but I don't think it was one of those where it was like, hey, no one knows what the rules are. I think this was just one of those where they kind of said, okay, we're going to let some contact go, particularly in the paint. That was physical in the lane in this game. And Shaedon Sharpe fell victim to that. There was physicality in the lane. On some nights, that's almost certainly a foul. The NBA has maybe a subjectivity issue when it comes to fouls, but on this night, there had been a lot of contact in the lane. I think that call was relatively consistent with how, in general, how the game had been called to that point. Chauncey Billups did not agree with my personal assessment. He's a lot closer than I am, and to be clear, I've not watched this back on replay. I'm just from my seat. I'm like, yeah, that could have been a foul call. They didn't call it, and then Billups is pissed. And as Billups is so mad and the Blazers miss, the Cavs run the other way. Like, Shaedon Sharpe's down in a heap. The Blazers have two other guys below the foul line after he misses that layup. And while maybe you'll hear announcers talk about on TV how three-pointers lead to transition opportunities, not nearly as bad as missed layups. Missed layups actually do lead to transition opportunities with much more frequency than missed threes, despite what you may hear when you're watching the NCAA tournament this weekend. That's just a straight-up myth. Missed layup leads to a transition opportunity, and Sam Merrill hits a huge three, and the Cavs all of a sudden are up 5, and Billups is pissed. He is yelling at the refs. He's saying bad words. He's waving away with his hands. Like, he's yelling. And the Blazers come down. Good Cavs defensive possession leads to a Donovan Clingan missed three-pointer. Donovan Clingan made 2 threes in this game, and that was his third attempt. His other 2 were more open than that. I felt like that third 3 was not necessary, but it was also just like the Cavs were making it hard, had made it hard for them to get easy shots, and Clingan felt like he had one, and he stepped into one. That was probably, of the 3 attempts, the only one I didn't really love. I didn't really love that shot. But hey, what are you gonna do? Guys shoot threes in the NBA. It happens. He misses. Cavs come down. And they don't score. Billups is still hot though, and when after the Blazers get a stop, Kamara comes down and drives and gets what is initially called a foul, but Billups takes timeout. It's the time to take a mandatory timeout. We're under first stoppage under 7 minutes in the quarters. Second and fourth quarter, that's a mandatory timeout. Chauncey Billups goes ahead and takes one, and he goes ahead and gets himself a technical foul during that timeout too. He complains. He comes out immediately and tells one of the referees that's BS, and says his part and then I couldn't see the rest of the conversation, but really laid into the refs. He was hot. Also during that timeout, the Cavs challenge the call, and it ends up being clean block off to Toumani Camara, and they're going to get the ball back. So you come out of the timeout, down 5. Cavs are going to get a free throw. That's going to push it to 6 when Darius Garland hits the free throw. Cavs get the ball back. They get an offensive rebound off a missed shot. Darius Garland makes a really nice move to score in the lane on a cut. Gets a nice dish and scores a tough angle bank on a layup. And all of a sudden, it's an 8-point game. It's about 60 seconds from a 2-point game with Shaedon Sharpe heading to the free throw line, if you get that call, to down 8 with 5:10 to go on the Garland layup. 112-104. 6 quick points, 60 seconds, but you go from being right in the game to now needing to win the final 5 minutes by 9 against a really good team. You're going to need to play nearly perfect. And the Blazers just couldn't make shots in the fourth quarter. They go 4 of 17 from 3, and they miss their final 9 3-point attempts. And the final 5 minutes were unkind to them, and they lose 122-111. That's your fastest recap in the West. That little 6-0 burst for the Cavs turned into a 14-4 spurt, and then they find themselves up 12, their largest lead of the game, and the Blazers, who had done so well to not lose contact and respond every time it looked like the Cavs were going to make it, make it a more competitive game. There were 7 lead changes all in the first quarter in this game. You don't see that very often. It's a really back and forth game in the first quarter, tied at 33, and then the Cavs took the lead and never gave it up. They never led by more than 12, I guess, at the very end of the game with like 4 minutes left, 3.5 minutes left. But like for the most part, they barely led by double digits. The Blazers always were hanging around, but while they never let the Cavs run off and hide, they never got the lead back. They never took control of this one. And that 1 minute change where the Blazers don't get a foul call, they miss a 3 and get a challenge that went against them. Although in the arena it was unclear like who's challenging what, because they didn't explain it very well over the PA system. But like it was the right call. Like it was a clean block and it went off to money. What are you gonna do? It just shifted so quick, and it speaks to the Blazers' like general margin for error in this game. I don't think it's a bad game. I think there's a lot to be appreciative of. Let's talk Donovan Clingan. Let's talk Scoot Henderson, Matisse Thybulle, Shaedon Sharpe in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you about Gametime. There's nothing like going to sporting events. There's nothing like going to a dang live basketball game. One of my favorite things to do in the world. The energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers, maybe even a celebrity sighting like a certain niche podcaster sitting in section 113. If you want to catch a glimpse of a game in person, Gametime makes getting tickets easier than ever. Gametime's new feature, Gametime Picks, filters out all the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste your time scrolling through thousands of tickets. Instead, you can find what you want quickly and save some money while you're doing it. Gametime Picks even highlights super deals, giving you the best bang for your buck. Plus, you can click on your seats and view what it's going to look like straight from your seat. So there's no surprises. What is my view going to look like? That's what your view is going to look like. There's no surprise fees at checkout, and it's got the lowest price guarantee, so you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use that redemption code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right. So I think the part of the season to celebrate moral victories is maybe beyond us. But I do think the Blazers played well. Undoubtedly. Certainly the Cavaliers are missing who's probably their best player in Donovan Mitchell. But, good teams are deep. Good teams have depth. It's a good basketball team. I think there are a lot of people skeptical of the Cavs maybe like championship realities and probably you won't see too many people picking them against the Celtics when they get to the playoffs, but they're freaking good. It's a good basketball team and they showed it. I don't think the Blazers played perfect, but it wasn't like they got overwhelmed. They kind of just were like, they had a very small margin for error, and one bad 60-second stretch, they don't get a call. Because they don't get a call, they give up a transition 3. They miss a shot. They miss a 3-pointer that maybe isn't a great shot, but they miss a shot, and you get a charge that goes against you, give up an offensive rebound and a bucket, and that's kind of like, eight's going to be a lot to come back from. Like that's how slim it was in this game. But I think there was some, like, you could see the outlines of kind of what the future of the Blazers could potentially look like in this game. I mentioned that Donovan Clingan had a big first half. I mean, his final line is pretty freaking impressive. 18 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists. He blocked 3 shots. He had a steal. He was 6 of 10 from the floor, 2 of 3 from 3. He's not a great finisher around the rim. A couple of his buckets are like shots he needs to be able to make. Couples of field goal attempts, I should say, are shots he needs to be able to make around the rim. One of them he rebounds and puts back. Like, how he becomes a positive offensive player is going to be his challenge, right? Like, can he find enough ways to be a positively impactful player on offense? Because I think on defense he knows what he does. he's not going to be able to play in every single matchup, right? Like I think there was a couple times in this particular game where Evan Mobley, who's really special at his size with his ball handling, he had one play where he was kind of dancing cross on the right hand side, and DeAndre Hunter flashed into the paint, and off the dribble he makes an on target pass to a cutting forward. It's like a 6'10", 6'11" forward who can toggle up and play center and makes like smart reads off the dribble. Like, whew. He had a coast to coast and one that he caught like at basically the foul line and drove 70 feet through traffic and got a bucket at the rim while drawing a foul. Like, Evan Mobley's good, and a couple times he gave Donovan Clingan problems, right? Because of that, his size and his athleticism and his quickness and really the ball handling at his size is special. But I thought Clingan played really well. He played really he led to one of the great highlights of the game in the first half. He had a block at the rim, and Denny Avdia corrals the loose ball block. He pushes ahead and throws a lob to Shaedon Sharpe, except that Denny threw it like a little bit too high, but there's no such thing. So actually Sharpe had missed an alley-oop earlier in the game from Denny, but like Sharpe just like went up and got it at a kajillion feet in the air, hung in the air and dunked it. Like, dude's a superhero. But like Clingan starts that break. Clingan is the thing that allows that to happen because of the block shot. I think he played really well in this game, and he's playing big minutes. He's on the court. This was a good Clingan night, and I think you feel good about where he's heading down the stretch. He obviously has some challenges, right? The fouling stuff and his offensive weaknesses, but he already is like pretty solid at exactly what his strengths are going to be. And I'm a big believer in make your strengths strong. Like that's like my sort of ethos when it comes to young players trying to figure out where they fit in the league. If you're good at something, like find out what your sort of elite, above average to elite skill is, on that anything on that side of the spectrum, and like just like find ways you can do that more often. And then Clingan is good enough and smart enough to like drop defender that it's like, put me in this position to succeed, to protect the rim, and I can. I think he's doing that. He's a good rebounder. This was a really good Clingan game. Speaking of elite skills, Shaedon Sharpe was 8 of 20 for his 18 points. That's not like a game that you're going to really celebrate, but this is like a weird way to say this, but I thought his makes were really impactful. It's like, yeah, he missed 12 shots, but I thought the 8 that went in were cool. Like, it's kind of a stupid way to say it, but what I mean by that is like, he's really improved as a finisher. He had a couple alley-oop dunks, one in the first half from Denny, one in the second half from Scoot, that were like super, super fun. And that's just like, he's good in transition and jumps really high, right? Like, that's such a fun part of his game. But the part of the game that I think is like, that is a little more repeatable than just like, he built the whole plane out of alley-oops, is like, he's just become a really good finisher. He is a very, very good finisher. Last year he was kind of like, Shaedon Sharpe doesn't finish very well despite all of his strength and athleticism. I don't get it. And this year he's just parlayed that into being like, Shaedon Sharpe is a really good defender. That's his strength. And I felt like in this game that was kind of pronounced. His tough finishes around the rim were the buckets that felt that were those were like, you could see the outline of what the good version of Shaedon Sharpe is. The shooting is going to be the thing that maybe decides his ultimate ceiling. He was 1 of 5 again from 3 tonight. That put him at 7 of 15 inside the arc. But like, I like if you're talking about keep your strength strong, Shaedon Sharpe's game is really good around the rim. And if you can build out from that, a high level skill at finishing, you have a much cleaner path to becoming a very good player, or at least a very good offensive player. And I think Shaedon has that. That's a thing to build on. I don't feel the same way about Scoot necessarily. I'm not sure what Scoot's elite skill is. Pretty good passer. You could argue that like, he's already an above average passer and he could build on that. So I think that's a place where you could push back against my sort of thinking here. But I kind of think that my concern with Scoot is like, yeah, he's pretty good average at a lot of things. There's a path to him being like a pretty good NBA player, pretty obviously, because he's like his feel and the playmaking and stuff. But like, what's the thing in with Clingan's defense, with Shaedon Sharpe's finishing, like I should say drop coverage, rim protection for Clingan, let's be specific, and like rim finishing for Shaedon. I'm not sure exactly what it is right now for Scoot, but I still feel like he's made big strides this year, even if I don't know what his elite skill yet is. And I thought he was really good in this game. 18 points, 6 boards to go with 6 assists. 18, 6, and 6 is just a freaking good game. And Scoot had a bunch of stinkers in a row. So for him to have that, and he had 10 of his 18 in the fourth quarter, kind of helping them get back in the game. He had a 3 early in the quarter and kind of a 3 to break up a series of misses. They went 4 of 17 from 3 in the fourth quarter, and he had 2 of them, including the Blazers missed their final 9. I thought he was pretty quiet, and then all of a sudden you look up and it's like, yeah, he had a really nice close to the game and kept them hanging around, and he I'm not exactly sure what I like, and I'll probably talk about this more in a future episode, but it's like, I'm not exactly sure what Scoot's like definite, without a doubt, above average and better skill is. I think it's the passing is what you hope it is, but I'm not sure that that's like always there, quite frankly, because of the turnover stuff. But I think the good version of Scoot is a well-rounded player. He does a lot of things, and I think this was a game where he did a lot of things, 18, 6, and 6. Stinker from Anthony Simons, too. 2 of 12, 1 of 10. He was just bad in this game. He got a compliment from Chauncey Billups in the postgame, but I don't know about all that. The other guy I want to mention before I pivot a little bit, Matisse Thybulle, hooping. Let's talk about him after the break. Join me in the third segment, won't ya? Still a pass first point guard, still Mike Richmond, still listening to Locked On Blazers. Matisse Thybulle still hooping. Matisse hit 5 threes, 5 of 6 from deep, started 4 of 4. He had this really funny line going early in the game where he had taken 3 shots, all threes, he'd made them, had no other stats but a steal. 9 points, 1 steal, no misses. He finished with 15 points, 3 boards, 1 steal, and a turnover, 5 of 6 shooting from 3. I'll say this, and this is kind of how I've always felt about Matisse Thybulle. They don't guard him. He did all of the threes he took. All 6 of them were clean looks. Early on, this first one's from the right corner, second one's from the right wing. Hit it, missed a wide open one from the corner, got it back basically in the same spot a little bit later, cashed it out. He doesn't get respected like a shooter yet. But he is pretty clearly immediately leapfrog Chris Murray, at least in this particular game, because Delano Banton played 13 minutes off the bench, and then we did not get a Chris Murray appearance. Matisse's defensive impact is obvious. You just watch him for a few minutes, and it's like, well, he's weird and unique, and his anticipation is crazy, and he sits down in a stance, and then all of a sudden it's like, is he behind the screen? No, he's moving around it, or he's shooting the gap in a way that other players don't. He's breaking scheme rules in order to make plays. He's such an interesting and fun defensive playmaker. That impact is real. But his path to staying on the court is making shots. He's not going to make 5 of 6 threes every night. He's not going to shoot 6 threes every night. But when he does, you start to that's what his value really could be. Obviously, shooting is the swing skill for him. I haven't mentioned or Denny, which I feel like every show is appreciation of Toumani Camara and Denny Avdia. Here's a fun Denny thing. Denny had 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists, and I thought he was kind of bad. That's how good he's been as of late. That's how good Denny has been as of late. 17, 10, and 6, and I'm like, he didn't have it. 6 of 17 from the floor. I think that he really bludgeoned the Cavs last time. He bludgeoned them. He beat them up. 30-point triple-double. He made a bunch of threes in that game, but he also just got where he wanted to go, and he opened the 3-point shooting, let him be such a rim finisher, and he got to the free throw line. He's just a beast, a hyper-efficient, and I guess what's hyper-efficient, but an efficient 30-point triple-double. He had their attention. They really, 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 really were attentive to his drives in this game. They showed bodies and showed length and tried to get him, not let him get to that strong right hand. Denny is a hammer, right? He's just nah, I'm gonna go through there. Look out. He doesn't worry about if you know what he's gonna do, he's not worried about that. But I think the Cavs with their size that they have, were particularly attentive to it. And they gave him some trouble, and they're physical away from the rim to try to not even let him get that first full head of steam. He didn't punish them as much in transition as he sometimes can punish teams, and I think that's just maybe he didn't have a great night. He also missed free throws. He started 0 for 4 from the free throw line, and that was kind of a big deal in this game. The Blazers were 14 of 22 from the free throw line. That's actually a pretty big improvement, because at one point they had just made half of their free throws. They were really struggling at one point, slightly below that, but they finished, that's 64%. You miss 8 free throws in a game you lost by 11. You're not going to make all of them, right? But Denny is a 78-ish% free throw shooter. He was 2 of 6, started 0 of 4. You probably expect him to make another 3 free throws in this game. Donovan Clingan got to the line. He's not a particularly good free throw shooter. He was 4 of 7 at the line. So you say, okay, maybe you miss those, but really, it's just an uncharacteristic bad shooting night from Denny, who's been both good at really good at getting to the line and good at making them. It's kind of in the margins there. That's how you lose games against teams that are a little better than you. 3 free throws from Denny, which is maybe the expected outcome, is probably not going to shift this. But again, the game basically flipped in 1 minute in the fourth quarter from a 2-point game to an 8-point game because of some, tough calls, bad and 2 missed shots, right? A missed 3 and a layup that got blocked inside by Tumani. That's kind of flipped quick. And so maybe you make those free throws and instead it's a tie game and it feels a little bit different. I think obviously it's hard to know exactly what would have happened, but certainly they missed that. The other thing, and I'm going to close with this, went at the arena tonight. Not to brag, but some of my friends were also at the arena. And during my while I was at the arena talking to these friends, 2 of them brought up independently how many star players had missed games against the Blazers. We're eating dinner and talking about it, and no Donovan Mitchell in this game tonight, right? Your boy Donnie Spider misses it. He's missed both games against the Blazers this season. So I looked real quick at the number of quote unquote star players who had missed games against the Blazers since the All-Star break alone. And it's kind of staggering. So I only looked at teams that are playoff teams. And it's I don't really care about bad teams missing their best players, with all due respect to LaMelo Ball. But the Blazers have played 11 games by my count against playoff teams since the All-Star break. And in 9 of those games, teams have been without their typical starting lineup, missing at least 1 star player. It's since the All-Star break alone, which is basically a month of basketball, February 20th to you are now listening to Wednesday, March 26th show. The following players have missed a game against the Blazers: Luka Doncic, Donovan Mitchell twice, Drew Holiday twice, Kristaps Porzingis twice, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Brunson, Ja Morant, Nikola Jokic, and that's it, because we're back to the Celtics. That's a lot. That's a lot of all-stars. That's a lot of good players. That's both dudes who are going to finish top in the MVP voting. And the Blazers are just 2-7 in those 9 games. They played the full-strength Pistons and the full-strength Warriors. They lost both those games. Those were relatively close. Full strength meaning Steph, Draymond, Jimmy, and Cade Cunningham at all. Obviously, Jaden Ivey's out for the Pistons, out all year. But only 2-7 wins over the shorthanded Nuggets, shorthanded Grizzlies. It's the Blazers' play-in hopes are probably on the ropes right now. I think they have to probably win. They've got 9 left. I think they probably got to go 8-1 realistically to make the play-in tournament. They could get some help. There's a chance, Mavericks lost tonight. There's a chance the Blazers get some help. But when you look back, if you're really someone who's I wish they had made the play-in, it's this is it. You play the Lakers without Luka. You play the Cavs without Donovan Mitchell twice. You play the Celtics resting, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and one of the star Jays twice. You play OKC resting their top 6 players, trotting out just Alex Caruso and Aaron Wiggins. Can you beat them? You can't. You got thrashed in the final 7 minutes. The Knicks, who are kind of scuffling, and without Jalen Brunson. The Grizzlies without Ja Morant. Obviously they won that game, but there's, I think what it speaks to is like good teams have depth. Like the Cavs, they're just really good. They're a really good basketball team, and like obviously they'd be way better with Donovan Mitchell, but it's like they look like a very good team without him, and it's like, good teams have depth. The Lakers have, I think Austin Reeves and LeBron combined for like 70 in that game. The Celtics obviously are very deep, but it's like, you come in to get burns by Peyton Pritchard and Derek White. It's not the same, right? It's not like you got beat by 2 dudes who are going to be on the All NBA teams at the end of the year. So if you look back and you're sort of lamenting what could have been, it's just like the Blazers have had opportunities against quality teams, missing quality parts, and they haven't taken advantage. That's life, right? And that list right there doesn't account for the Blazers' own injuries during that stretch and who may or may not have been available, right? Like even the game they won against the Nuggets, they were also super shorthanded in that game as well. So, I'm not to say like they blew it, but just to say like the margin for error against the Cavs was about 60 seconds of playing time that went from real good chance to like going to have to play perfect, and they didn't play perfect. And that's kind of how it's been in some of these games. Like obviously they haven't been close in every single one of them, but like when you are a team that isn't as talented as the other teams you're playing against, or you're playing against a shorthanded team that is otherwise significantly more talented than you, your margin for error might be really small, and it's sometimes in the margins. It's missed free throws and a minute of just like poor play, a minute of like things not going your way, of not getting a call and missing a layup and having a challenge go against you, and et cetera, et cetera. NBA teams get hurt. You could probably do this exercise for a lot of teams. Who they've missed, but I think it's notable for the Blazers because during this push, it's like, they've got they've got this really tough schedule, and it seems that particularly recently during this stretch, it's like really tough schedule, but they're missing this one key guy. And, obviously they weren't able to take advantage against Cleveland and Boston. And that their hopes of a play-in run are probably done. But, it's something to look back on. And maybe if you're a super pro play-in run, it's like, hey, they had their opportunities, no doubt about it. Blazers played fine in this game. I think they played well for the most part, albeit coming up a little bit short when it mattered. Hey, let's do this again, shall we? That's what we do. There was a great story by Kerry Eggers, veteran scribe here in Portland, who wrote about Clyde Drexler's beef with the organization. We'll talk about that and play-in stuff on tomorrow's program is what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.